The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday, and I'm thrilled to be here with you because I'm with you. So what I want to share with you is that during the holiday season, it's so important to keep that kindness going. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have got our books, because some of the profits from our books go to kiva.org, and we help entrepreneurs from all across the globe. And the best part is that, remember, we want to take the holiday cheers and season spirits into 2024. And we just kind of continue that kindness circle that I invite you to do it. Take 1 hour of your time every month and give it to someone without any restrictions, without any agenda. Just be kind. So I'm going to invite our guest in today, Melanie Paul. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, Divya. Thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely. So folks, for those of you who don't know Melanie, has been an accountant with over 24 years of experience. She started her career as a nonprofit CFO, moved into governmental accounting at a very prestigious local university. In 2009, she left the corporate world. You know, a lot of us have that desire to do that. And she did that. She started her own business, and she has done really well. And she has focused on bookkeeping for small individually owned businesses. She's got a very interesting background with, with experience in forensic accounting, job casting, cash flow projections, and budgeting. And she also has a team of bookkeepers that work with her. And she has helped several businesses, not only with bookkeeping, but helping them find money in their business. So we all want some cash, right? Like whatever cash we have brought in, we want to see how we can keep more of it, what you can do with it. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So before we jump into our conversation today, can you share with me if you recall a moment from your childhood that stands out for you even today?
From my childhood. I remember trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it started with a veterinarian, and moved from being a veterinarian into, I loved cosmetology and doing people's hair, and I was a model, and I wanted to make up and make people look pretty. But I said, if I ever have my own business, I want to know how to run it. So I went to become an accountant just so that I could figure out how to run my my cosmetology business. And then it turns out I ended up loving accounting. So I went from a veterinarian to a makeup artist and a cosmetologist to an accountant.
Well, it's the intention, right? It's
Yeah.
about what you wanted to do, and to support that, you created the skill sets, and that's what's fantastic.
Yes.
So there are a lot of tell us that, tell us a little bit about your journey as you continued through taking accounting. How did you know that that was it for you?
Funny story. I hated school. I couldn't stand school. In fact, it was kind of a running joke in our family that we don't know how I ended up graduating because I skipped school a lot. I just didn't want to be there, but I was always on time for my accounting class. When I was in high school, I loved my accounting class so much that I would do other people's projects. When I was done, I'm like, oh, please let me do yours, let me do yours. I just thought it was the funnest thing. I got 100 in that class and I just thought it was the most wonderful thing. And I didn't like anything else about school, but that class kept me going through high school. And that's the first time that I felt like I found something or somewhere where I belonged. I felt something that I was good at. And
Oh,
that's
that's powerful.
yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that if you find something where you have that sense of belonging, and if you're passionate about it, go for it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I always believe turning a passion into a business is the best thing to do.
So going from a nonprofit organization, you joined a local university. To tell us a little bit about that transition.
From nonprofit to for-profit? Another funny story. I love nonprofits, but it is backwards accounting. It's everything. I went into becoming a nonprofit CFO straight out of college. I had a 5-year degree in accounting. We all learned about governmental accounting and corporate accounting, but they don't really teach you much about nonprofit accounting. And when I went in there, everything I learned I had to basically throw out the window and just start from scratch and think backwards. So I did that for a while. And then 2008, 2009 hit, and I started working with some businesses. They wanted me to help them out. I wanted to kind of go on my own. And I was working with a tax accountant. And I kept thinking I would get into taxes because everybody says that's where the money is, right? Go into taxes, you'll make all this money. Okay, great. I'll just do that. I have an accounting background. I could do this. I hate taxes. But I could work for him, and I was learning it, and it's basically data entry, and I thought this will be great. He recommended me to someone as a QuickBooks expert. I've been doing QuickBooks for over 20 years. And so I went in and was looking at the books, and she said, I noticed that they were double counting their income. And I said, well, this is a red flag because that means they're going to pay double the amount of taxes, roughly. And so I showed the lady that I was working for. She said, well, show me what you mean. And I went through and I showed her how they were double counting their income. And she started getting into it and she goes, wait, stop. That's not my problem. All we're supposed to do is take their numbers and put it on a tax return. Their books are management's responsibility. So I found out a little bit more about this business. It was a mom and pop business. They had no clue what they were doing, and it was evident in their books. And I said, but somebody should teach them. And she says, well, they won't pay me for that. We've done that. We've been down that route before. They won't pay my rates. Just do what I asked you to do. Take the numbers and put it. And I said, I'm having a hard time doing this because that means they're going to pay more taxes. This is just not right. And so I went home, thought about it, and went back the next day and I quit. And I gave her a brochure that I had made in about 45 minutes and printed it out 8.5 by 11 paper, black and white, folded it up. And I said, I printed like 20 copies and I left it there. And I said, anytime you run into these folks who have trouble, please hand them my card. I don't think she ever referred me to anybody, but that was what propelled me into saying, I want to meet every business owner that doesn't know how to do their books, and I want to teach them how to do their books so that not only could they make decisions around their business, but they will pay less taxes. That was my mission at that point. That was my new passion. It wasn't about money. It was about helping
people. And then I know you work for profit, and what was it that helped you make the decision? Because there's so many people who are working in the corporate world, or they're in a job, or they're in a business that they've put in a lot of time and effort in, but they want to transition. What went through your head and how did you decide to transition?
I actually loved my job at the university. I loved the guy that I was working for. In that sense, where I was working was kind of isolated, and that we were kind of a co-op with different universities. So we could kind of not, I don't want to say be stringent to the university rules, but it operated a little differently, and we were great. And then he ended up getting another job offer, and I ended up getting into another position, an accounting position in the university. And oh, man, I hit that bureaucracy really quickly. And I was just like, but if you do it this way, it would be so much, I had all these ideas, and, I can help you and I can help, this would be great, but they don't want to hear it. They've done it this way forever. Like, but you're losing money. But there's a lot of buts. And I just realized I'm a puppet. I am hired. I made great money, but I'm hired to do things a certain way. And there was no thinking outside the box. There was no saving the company money. And that's just, it didn't line up with who I am. So I decided it was time to leave and start my own business. I
Basically,
don't want to say I didn't love what I did. I loved what I did. I did. I didn't love being in a box.
so what I'm hearing, Melanie, is that you wanted to help people. Your
Yes.
desire was you loved the job and you wanted to help people, and there was no room for that because of bureaucracy. Because anytime, like if you take a look at any big organization, to bring about a change is like saying, like, how are we going to talk about that elephant in the room? And it does take time, and it's the reality. So tell us a little bit about your business journey before we dive into all the deep questions, which I'm sure our listeners are waiting to hear.
Well, like most business owners, and I can say this now, but it's been hard to say this in the past. The best way to learn your business and how to grow is to fail. And I have failed. I have failed over and over and over, but I've learned from all those failures. And it was hard at first, but I jumped right back in and said, okay, I made a mistake, and this wasn't great. And I'm sorry. I apologize. This was horrible. I gave away a lot just because I felt so bad. But I learned from that and just kept going forward and kept moving forward and kept moving forward. And it's great now. And not to say I'm not still going to make mistakes. I will. But it's learning from those mistakes and moving forward. You just get stronger, and then you can help others who make similar mistakes, because we all do. We all make mistakes. We're human. And just being able to talk to somebody, talk to my clients, and they're like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what I just did. And I'm like, hey, let me share with you something I've experienced. And they're just like, okay, it's not just me. Thank you for sharing. And it kind of helps get them over the hump and growing their business as well.
So let's say, there's a small business owner, they're getting started and they have to wear so many different hats. And they're talking about, I can't sleep at night, I'm overwhelmed, and this business is not where it should be, where I started, and how can I bring back that passion? What would you tell them?
The first thing I would say is ask questions. So many people, when they get overwhelmed and they're like, oh my gosh, they get this burden on their shoulders, and they start hating things. And they're like, I just won't open my mail. I won't do this. And then they can't sleep because they're like, I have no idea like what I'm doing. And I've seen cycles of a business. When you first started out, you're passionate and you're on fire. And you're just, I can't wait to do the work. And you go out to a networking meeting and you just share business cards all over the place and share phone numbers. And then the business comes in and you're like, this is awesome. And you start working in the business, and then you hit a lull. And you did all the business. Now you got to go back out and do networking. Then you got to do the business. Then you got to do the networking. And it's kind of an ebb and flow. And then you just get to the point where like, what am I doing? And in about year 2 or 3, it starts to hit. You're like, I'm not making any money. Like, I really want to do this. I love it. It's my passion, but man, the money's just not coming in. I don't know how long I can keep doing this. And then all these start to put out the fire that you had at the beginning. And you're just like, okay, now I have I've made my own job. I got out of corporate, or I got out of wherever I was working, and I did this because this was what I was passionate about, but that passion's turned into a job. I don't like it anymore. Maybe I should just go back and get a job, because at least there I got paid. I didn't like it, but I got paid. And so the first thing I would say is ask questions. Look at your expenses. Find a good bookkeeper. That would really help you, because they're your partner and they're going to be in this with you, and they can help you look at numbers from a different perspective, and not a judgmental way. Just, hey, how can we help you? Let's see where you are. How can we help you grow? The first thing I do, and most of the clients I get are at this point. They're not sleeping. And I'm like, okay, let's look at your cash flow. What kind of recurring expenses do you have? And we all have them, dues and subscriptions. We have those out the wazoo.
No,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
So without giving away any client's details, can you share us a story? You mentioned that you have
yeah,
clients who are coming to you, who are at this stage and who are going through, and it's hard because as
yeah,
I coach people, people are like, oh, what do I do? And here's the thing, that it's important to have that list of people in your circle. And one of the people that you're mentioning, that, having that professional by your side is definitely a bookkeeper. I
yeah.
definitely agree with that. So give us a story without naming any names.
Okay, so I was working with someone who had a remodeling business. It was they were spending a lot on advertising, and jobs were coming in, and they were busy. They were doing great. I looked at their numbers and I'm like, hey, y'all are doing pretty good. But the guy's just like, I can't sleep at night. I just can't sleep. I'm up all the time. Something's wrong. I can't put my finger on it. I mean, yeah, we're doing great. And they just started doing some new home construction, and they're like, yeah, we're doing great, but I don't know where it is. We're making money, but I feel like just something, and I just can't put my finger on it, and I just can't sleep. And so I said, just give me a week. And I went and I just created this massive spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets, but I created this massive spreadsheet, and I looked through every single job, and they were doing about 100 jobs a month. So it's a lot of jobs. They had a whole crew and everything. And I'm just like, okay, let me figure this out. So I went and I looked at everything, and about a week later, I came up and we had a meeting, and I says, would you like to know what your average gross profit margin is for every job that you have?
Mhm.
And we're talking about big remodeling jobs. And he said, sure. I said, 50 cents. I said, what? That can't be right. That can't be right. And I said, no, that is right here. Is this right? He said, yeah, is this right? Yes. We went over all of them. He goes, just can't be right. And I said, well, there's something internally off to make this happen. So do you mind if I ask your employees questions? And he said, sure. So I went around and I pinpointed one of the problems. I asked his salespeople who were going out and getting the jobs. I said, I wanted to go through the processes, and I says, well, when you are meeting with a client, are you getting a down payment? No, we really don't like to ask for down payments. Like, oh, okay. Is everybody like that? And he says, yeah, we just don't do that.
Mm.
I'm thinking, okay, well, you're putting out all your expenses up front. You're paying people up front, but you're not getting anything to be able to offset those expenses. And then because they had exploded so fast, they got behind on their jobs, and there were some issues. And so they were comping people. And so when you put all that together, they were not making money, but they had just started into new homes, and new homes was doing really well. So that was carrying the other side of the business. And so he made an executive decision to stop the remodeling. He said, I'm just going to stop. Took all the guys that he was working the remodeling, brought them over to the new home side. That was 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And he's doing great. I mean, he's in the millions right now. He is doing really well. So it's just knowing those numbers. They couldn't see it because it was buried in those numbers. That's where the forensic part comes, where you just pick things apart and start looking at them. I don't look at things to point fingers. I look at things to say, where is it broken and how can it be fixed? How can it line up? Just another quick one. I had another guy, I met with him, and I says, what's the most important part of your business? He said, my employees. And I said, well, yeah, I agreed with them. And I said, well, what would you like to do for them? And he goes, I want to give them a raise. They earn it. They're doing great. I want to show them my appreciation, but I'm losing money. And if things don't turn around, I have to close the business. And I love my employees. They've been with me for some of them over 20 years. And it took us 5 months. And we figured it out. We did, the same thing, the same process I did with the other guy. He figured it out. He gave his employees bonuses. He's still doing really good. And that was like over 10 years ago.
And what was the issue with his business?
NSF fees, overdraft fees, timing of clients would pay. And then, he had never raised his prices. And he had a transportation business that involved fuel. And, fuel prices raised, the cost of everything went up, and he hadn't increased his prices. So we went through all of his jobs and, did some break-even analysis calculations and figured out what he should charge them. But he also agreed, I just can't go from here to here. Let's incrementally increase it, because I can't just, my clients are,
Absolutely.
he loved his clients, and he goes, I can't just, hurt them, because they built this into their budget. So by doing that and getting his cash flow under control, so he didn't have all these NSF fees, he did great.
Mm-hmm. And that shows that you can still keep your ethical values, because it's important, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you go into entrepreneurship to serve people.
Yeah.
You can still have that value of working from a place of integrity and still profit. And that's the beauty of what you have shared about the stories. So now there's a lot of people, as they're growing, let's say things are in place, they may be thinking, should I advertise or not? So what has been your experience with that?
I'm all about advertising. I think it's great. I love word of mouth advertising, obviously, but my first question, if someone asks if they should advertise, is what are you expecting? Because a lot of people just want to throw money at someone and think that they're going to, help grow their business. And that doesn't always turn out. You really need to think through it. What's your expected return on investment? And so I asked them, what's the average cost of what you sell? How much do you make on each item you sell after all expenses? And then how many sales would you need each month to pay for that advertising? Because you kind of have to break it down that way. And you have to know, do I think that this type of advertising could, if I did this, could I sell 10 more widgets in a month? If so, then by all means, you should do it. But I think they also need to make sure in their budget that they can afford at least 6 months of whatever advertising they do, because it takes time. And if they just throw money at this one and that doesn't work after 30 days, then we're going to go over here, and that doesn't work over 30 days, and we're going to go over here, and then after a while we're broke. Whereas if we just stayed with one and knew what our expectations were, and we knew how much can we afford for that advertising based on what we're selling, then you can make a much more informed decision, and the advertising usually works to your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So it's a more than I just need more business question.
That definitely makes sense. And a lot of people we're talking about, let's talk about some best practices. A lot of entrepreneurs don't like numbers. And I know I'm one of those who doesn't like numbers. So a lot of people say like, okay, why do I need a budget? Things are changing so much throughout the year. What would you tell them?
I think a budget is needed, but I think a reason why a lot of people are against budgets is because they do what they call a static budget. And a static budget means, most accountants and bookkeepers are saying, we got to do a budget. So at year end, we're going to predict what you're going to do next year. But it's static, which means it doesn't change, but your business does change. And so what happens is you have this budget, and as you're going throughout the year, you're not even close to it. And you're like, well, then what's the point of doing this? Well, budget is very important to predict, because it can show you ebbs and flows in your business. There may be 1 month that's you're doing really well, and maybe you predict these other months, from experience, these other months are going to be kind of hard for you. Maybe you're Business doesn't do good in the summer, but it does great at the end of the year, or vice versa. And so a rolling budget's what I like to do. And what a rolling budget is, it starts as a static budget, but every month you take 1 month off. That's the actual month. You replace that to the budget, and then you put another month on. And any changes, maybe your rent goes up. So you pull that rent all the way through for 12 months. So you always have a 12-month view of your business. And it's a current 12-month view because you're putting in there things that are known. Your expenses have increased, your income has decreased. And you can kind of look through and see how you're going to do. And maybe you see in October, you're going to have a loss, but in August, you're going to have a really good income. So maybe when you start it, well, to give a good example, I had a business that I did this with, and it was a service-based business, and they would go out there it was like a plumber, for example. They would go out there and have these projects, and they would get all the materials and all the labor, and they put them in these projects, and then they would get paid. So their cash flow would go down that month, and they would have a loss because they're putting out a lot of money. But then the next month they get in a lot of money because they finished the job and the customer pays.
Yeah.
And then they would say, wow, we got all this money. We can go buy that new car or that new truck, or we can go celebrate Christmas and take everybody out, which is great to want to do that. But the next job's going to come and you're going to need money for that job. So the rolling budget will show these ebbs and flows so that you can prepare and you can say, wow, I've made $10,000. This money came in and it's great, but I can only spend $2.
Yeah.
Because I need to save that $8. And then that 2, the next month is going to turn into 3, and the next month 4, the next month 5. And yeah, that's what rolling budgets do.
That makes sense. And so, okay, they have the budget, they have a bookkeeper, they have everything in place. Now they're sitting down with the accountant at the end of the year and they're like, okay, you know what? You're telling me I made money, I gotta pay tax on it, but I don't see it in my bank account. So what do they do then?
And I love it when they say, like, where is this money they say I have? And why am I being taxed on money that I don't have? That's my favorite question, and everybody asks it. And there's a lot of different answers, and this is why it's so important to know your numbers. So there's management books, and these are your books done in a way that helps you make decisions, and there's your tax books. And they're 2 different sets of numbers. And so there's lots of things that, especially if you have a lot of loans and you're paying on those loans, all those payments go on your balance sheet. Well, your profit and loss is what's taxed. That's net income is what's taxed. All those payments, they're not there. They're on your balance sheet. So you may be paying a lot of money, so you see your checking account go down, but your profit and loss is going up. And that can be confusing. What sits on the profit and loss and what sits on the balance sheet, and owner's draw accounts. Most businesses that are smaller, they take money out of their business account to pay themselves. They make $1,000 this month. They need to pay their mortgage. They take it out. And so that's called an owner's draw. And so that also sits on your balance sheet. That's pay that you have to yourself, but on the profit side, you're looking great because it doesn't affect it. You're taking money pretty much out of your balance sheet accounts. So, and large purchases at year end. I love it when companies come up to me and they're like, tell me what my numbers are. Tell me what my numbers are. I've got one right now that I just cleaned up. And she's just like, our tax account, last year they killed us and we can't do this again. And so let me know what the numbers are because we need to buy a truck at the year end, or we need to buy a vehicle, or we need to buy some piece of equipment for our business. And they're thinking that if I have $50,000 net profit at the end of the year, I can go buy a $50,000 piece of equipment and I'm at zero. That doesn't happen because that piece of equipment is going to go on your balance sheet and be depreciated over 10 or more years. So you're only going to get a portion of that. So you're still going to owe taxes. So it's really being able to look at your numbers from 2 perspectives, your management numbers to be able to make decisions around the growth of your business, and your tax numbers so that you can I like to tell people, put 20% aside every month or every quarter. Let's look at your profit and loss, and let's take that amount, put it in a savings account, because you're going to
Mm.
have to pay it at the end of the year.
No, that makes perfect sense. So do you have a story around this as well?
Almost every one of my clients, yes. They all, I have one right now. Well, I have lots of them. All of them are like this. And they come in and they're just like, well, the one right now, that it's kind of related to this, but it's kind of not. They owed a lot of money last year and they didn't want to get sidetracked this year, and their accountant wasn't doing a really good job and it made a mess. And so they said, hey, I just started with them a month and a half ago. And they're like, can you help us? Because we don't want to get sidetracked by the end of the year. We don't want to all of a sudden have this huge tax bill. We really don't know where we are. And I was going through and I realized there's an account that they never ever reconciled. And they've got lots of loans and bank account, never been reconciled. And so I said, I need the beginning balance, need the ending balance. I had to do a hard reconcile to get to the beginning of the year balance for over $200,000 to their benefit. That's expenses that they should have taken in prior years. And so all that money that they owed in the prior years, I've had several clients have this happen to them. All that money that they owed, they didn't really owe. If their books had been done right, and I'm talking thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you add them all together. And for some of them, there's nothing you can do. For other ones, there is stuff that you can do. And so right now I've got this, we're trying to figure out what their tax person's going to do, because each tax preparer is a little different. It's $200,000. You can't just stick that on a tax return. So we'll kind of figure out what to do with that. But yeah, it happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just knowing your numbers. And it's funny. I wish I could read you the email that she sent, because she was so hesitant to work with me because she's been burned so many times. In fact, she had a job and she left her job to come in and work in her husband's business as a bookkeeper, because he needed help and they didn't trust anybody. And she said, can you just teach me how to do it? And as I got in there, I said, well, it helps me to be able to do it, to be able to teach you, because everybody's different. And so she let me do that. And then she says, back to the first question, I can sleep at night now. And I love it. She sent me a text one day and she goes, can we be best friends? I really like you. And thank you so much. And you've really helped me. And she says, the weight of the stress, it was right around the holidays, the weight of the stress, she has been trying to get pregnant and has not been able to get pregnant. So she's hoping that all the stress comes off her and they'll be able to have a little one, which will be so cool.
Absolutely. We'll be thinking of your client and hope the new year brings her a
Less stress.
lot of joy. And
because the less stressed we are,
yeah,
the better things are in our personal life.
absolutely. You said it, Melanie, because stress is it takes away a lot of things. So now let's say people find themselves in a very, very hard situation and they may need a business loan.
Yeah.
How can they go about getting a business loan that doesn't drain them completely?
Yeah, and this is funny because I have a couple clients, every time I meet with them, they're like, is there any loans we can apply for? And I think COVID kind of did this to kind of had businesses depending on external types of money, because there was the PPP loans and the SBA loans and the ERC funds, and a lot of people got money, but there was nothing tied. They didn't have to do anything to get that money. Well, I mean, they had to have payroll and other things, but they didn't sell anything to get that money. And then it kind of got absorbed into their business. And now they kind of still need that income coming in. And so my first question is, why do you need a loan? Can you get a personal line of credit instead, or a business line of credit? Because they're out there and you only borrow what you need. But then the next question is, if the answer is, I do need a loan, this is why, and sure, I'm fine with a line of credit. Do you have a financial business plan? Because a loan isn't free money. You've got to pay it back. And which means your income has to increase to pay it back, because now you have an additional expense. And it kind of like what we were talking about with the advertisement. You know, you've got to plan it out so that the money that you borrow for the loan, you get a greater return to pay back the loan and increase your income. And then one thing a lot of people overlook is, what is your personal credit score? Because I don't care what your business is, they're going to look at your personal credit score. So that needs to be pretty good. And if it's not, it needs to be fixed before you even look for a loan, because you don't want to go through the whole process. It's a long process to apply for a loan, and then you just deflate, because when people start applying for a loan, in their mind, they start thinking, I can buy this and I can do this and I can do this. And they start putting it out there and expecting it. And then when the answer comes back that no, and it's because of your personal credit score, it's just like a big blow. They get depressed and it's hard to recover from. So these are things we want to think about before you look at the loan. And, you know, what's your plan to pay back the loan or the line of credit? And can you follow it? And what happens if you don't? You need to have this written down. What if I don't follow this? What are the ramifications? I'm putting this on myself, but I need to have it in there, because I've also seen business owners I've got one right now that is doing daily loans. And daily loans, we're talking about 30, 40% or more in interest. It's short-term loans, and they have to pay every single day on the proceeds of whatever they bring in that day.
Ooh.
And it's killing them. And it keeps them in a cycle where they have to keep borrowing. So
That's tough.
I like to say, I mean, there are good places that can help you, but I like to say, is there a way, and I've done this with a couple people, is there a way you can become your own funder? You can create a loan to yourself, interest-free. And that's the budgeting and the ebbs and flows and
creating that business financial plan that you talked about. So this has been such a jam-packed session where you've given so many different insights. So tell us, who do you work with? Where can people find you?
I work with small business owners and I love them. And now I've also got I work with nonprofits, and we have several social businesses where their business exists to help a social need, social enterprises. So we've got several of those, and you can find me at my website, guidestaraccounting.com. I'm be more than happy to meet with someone and just no strings attached. Ask questions. You got an hour. Ask questions. You cannot ask enough questions. And I can review their financials and just give them a report and say, this is what I found. And, you know, whatever they want to do with that information, no strings attached. I just really want to help people start asking the questions and feel comfortable asking those questions.
Wow. That's very generous of you, Melanie. So if they want to book a time with you, they can go to guidestaraccounting.com and find you there.
Yes. Yes. Or they can call me. They can call me and book a time that way too.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And as we wrap up the show, do you have any last piece of advice?
Ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question, because that's how you stay engaged with your business. And I do want to bring up one quick thing. I hear a lot of people talk about, I need to be a six-figure business, a six-figure business. A six-figure business does not equal a six-figure take-home pay. I want to leave people with that. I think that's important to know that, you know, you can have a business that doesn't make six figures and make more take home than a business that earns six figures or that has net sales of six figures.
Absolutely. So it's important that you sit down with Melanie and see where your business is and how you can go about outlining your business financial plan and go with strategy and tactics in your pocket. So thank you, Melanie, for joining us. We really appreciate your time and insights. So thank you, listeners, for being part of our show, because without you, the show would not be possible. So thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and comments and who would you like us to bring next as to how we can help you out. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. And talk to you some more. Take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.